paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations, all in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. Welcome back. So glad you made it. I am Dan Terry, your ghost host with the most haunted. And I'm speaking from North Carolina, but we're going to be talking to someone who's got a history like you wouldn't believe. This is like, I started in, back right around 1979 when I got my driver's license. This fellow was doing it before then. I'm going to introduce you to our guest here in a minute, John Russell, and he is 50 years. He has been a professional psychic. 50 years, half a century, he has been a tarot master, certified, not just messing with the cards. He was certified over 50 years ago as a tarot master. He's been on some of the big shows, guys. He's been on Beyond the Darkness with our own Dave Schrader, Shifting the Paradigm with Cristina Gomez. I'm going to be on hers here in a week or so, and hope I can keep up with this guy. Wow. And of course, the ultimate, he's been on Coast to Coast AM with George Noory. He's done a pilot for the History Channel in which he looked for information about the Lincoln Assassination by psychic ability. And according to the producer, he found things that he should not have known. And also he has done crystal ball work. He's done ghosts. He knows about hauntings, paranormal investigations, which we're going to talk a lot about, UFOs. This guy has done it all. And I'm going to bring him in, let him tell his story because he knows it better than I do. John Russell, come on in, buddy.
Hi, Dan. How are you doing, man? That was a good introduction. I hope I lived up to it.
Well, I'm glad you liked it because it was tough. Because usually the people I get to deal with has not been doing this as long as I have.
Right,
and
right.
Now I'm talking to someone I have to bow to because you've been doing it longer.
Oh, bless your heart. Well, I'll tell you, I had my first experience with a ghost when I was 5. Mm-hmm. I discovered my psychic gift at the age of 6. Wow. I started doing paranormal investigations at the age of 11 and started reading for friends and family, doing psychic readings around the age of 14, 15, somewhere around in there. And then at the age of 18, I began to read professionally. And now I'm 68, so I've been around the block a few times in this old gig. And I've read for clients in over 40 countries. I'm internationally known. That just blows my mind. And I've been doing this professionally for 50 years. And it has been quite a trip. It's been a wonderful life, an exciting life. I tell people the older I get, I think the more questions I have than answers, because the spiritual realm kind of tends to treat us that way. But I have enough answers for my clients that I can guide their lives successfully and help them achieve what they want to, what they need to in their lives. And I've had over 1,000 physical paranormal manifestations occur in my life that have literally occurred on the physical realm. A lot of times we photographed them, videoed them, recorded them. Other people have witnessed them. So the upstart of all of that, having said that, to say this, is that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt the spiritual realm is real. And I know that we can communicate with it in ways that enhance our lives, makes our lives better. And the problem that we have in doing that is we're over-connected right now. We've always got the earbuds in, or we're always scrolling on the cell phone or listening to music or watching TV or whatever. And to hear from the other side, we have to get quiet. We have to disconnect. And that means we get away from the cell phones. We get away from the the music, we get away from the TV, we get away from all of the distractions, and we get quiet. And in that quiet, then we can learn to hear the voice of spirit. The analogy that I always give is that if you and I were in a large room at a crowded party, and normal party noise, people laughing, drinking, talking, glasses clinking, and so on and so forth. You're on one side of the room, I'm on the other, and I'm like, Dan, can you hear me, Dan? And you wouldn't be able to hear the most loud sound I could make probably over the din of the party. But if all of a sudden the party shuts down, gets completely quiet, I can talk to you across the crowded room at normal tone of voice and you can hear me. Mm-hmm. It's that way with the spiritual realm. When we get rid of the noise, we pay attention and we listen. Then we can hear what the voice of spirit is telling us, what our intuition is guiding us toward. And then we have to put that into action. That's the most important thing. It's not good enough just to hear it. We have to act on it. So that's a tip I always give people. And it's difficult to do. You know, we come home and we're tired from work or whatever. We want to sit down and turn on the boob tube and relax, or catch the game, or we're scrolling through the phone, or we got calls to make. And what we have to do is discipline ourselves enough to make time to get rid of all of that, get all that quiet, and sit and listen to the voice of spirit. And the more that we do that, the more the voice of spirit is going to come through to us and guide us, and the more it's going to help us. So that helps us and help our lives, and then eventually helps us to help other people as well. I lost your audio.
There we go.
There you go. All right.
All right. When you're talking about the external stuff, right, TV and music. What about the internal, when you can't calm down because you're thinking about the bills, the job, the stress, right, the wife, whatever? How do you calm that down so you can hear the other side?
You've got to practice. One of the good ways to do that is meditation, and there's a lot of different meditations out there. You have to still your mind. You have to quieten your mind. And one way to do that is to begin with meditations, and then you can use affirmations in with the meditations. And the affirmations need to be things that are meaningful to you, that you can either write your own, or you can adapt them from other people's, or you can take other people's affirmations, whole cloth. There's a lot of websites, a lot of books out there on affirmations. So that's easy to find. But if you use those affirmations repeatedly, begin with something like, if you're really stressed out over bills, you're having problems with the wife, this, that, and the other, pick a general affirmation that's going to help you to relax and to become more positive. And don't start out with an affirmation that just declares that everything's hunky-dory. Maybe start out with an affirmation that says something to the effect of, I am willing to become at peace with my circumstances. And you repeat that and you say, okay, well, yeah, I am willing to become at peace with my circumstances. Now, how do I do that? And your next affirmation might be, I receive the guidance that leads me to peace in my life. Something of that nature. So you can work on those affirmations. And what I tell my clients is, it's absolutely impossible to focus totally and completely. I mean, with your whole heart, mind, body, soul, spirit, emotions, everything. It's impossible to focus completely equally on two opposite emotions or feelings or worries or fears or whatever in your life. So right now you're focusing on that. You've got all your attention on that, the bills or the problem with the wife or the health or whatever it is. When you stop that and refocus that by forcing yourself, making yourself to think on something that's positive and affirming and life affirming and leading you in a different direction. And you do that with every bit of willpower that you have, every bit of emotion that you have, every bit of energy that you have. You'll find out that you're no longer thinking about the other thing because you can't. You've got your sole focus on that one thing entirely. And if you say, well, I'm trying to do that, but all that's still creeping in, then you're not utilizing your full energy and your full focus on that. Because when you do, it's like when I play chess, I've got a buddy of mine, he's rated close to 1800. So he's out there a ways. And to beat him, which I do periodically, when I play chess, my concentration is such that my wife will have to yell at me loudly several times to break my concentration. And she always tells me, when you're deep in the chess game, a bomb would go off beside you. You wouldn't even know it. And that's the focus that we have to have. That's the concentration that we have to have when we're making these meditative attempts, these affirmation attempts. Think of the thing that when you're doing it, it's the most pleasurable thing in the world to you. Maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's watching sports. Maybe it's playing sports. Maybe it's crafting or knitting or welding or whatever. But one thing in your life brings you just fantastic pleasure. And when you're in that zone, when you're in that moment, you're just basically not aware of anything else. People have to yell at you to get your attention. So that's the focus and the concentration and the energy that you want to bring over into working on these affirmations and this meditation. And you want to do it enough, practice it enough that it becomes second nature. And you want to do it more than one time a day. And you want to do it more than 2 minutes. I got to hurry up and get through my meditation because the game's on. You got to spend enough time with that to realize the reward is going to come in time, and it's going to help you to achieve the things that you want in life, make your life better.
John, how does a 6-year-old figure out they're psychic? That's I cannot wrap my mind around that.
The way that I figured out that I was psychic, this happened after I had a visitation from an old black ghost, a black gentleman who awoken or rather created this connection with the other side, where I began to have all these paranormal experiences on the physical realm. And from that, and I write about that in my second book, Knock in the Attic. And from that, a little while later, I was out in the yard one day. I was playing with a toy, and this car pulled in the driveway, and I didn't recognize the people in the car, didn't recognize the car. So I ran inside and got my folks. I said, somebody's pulling the driveway. I don't know who it is. I said, okay, we'll come see. So they came out and I said, oh, that's some friends of ours. And I'd never met them, so I didn't know them. So I said, oh, okay, whatever. So they got out of the car and they were standing there on the sidewalk talking with my mom and dad. And I was goofing around the yard with my toy. And I walked over and I looked up at the people. And I said, you folks have just been on vacation and you drove that car that's in the driveway. And you have 2 kids. They're not with you today, but you have 2 kids and you took them with you on this vacation. And you stayed at this hotel that looked like this. It had this many stories, was painted this color. There was a area in the back with a swimming pool, and it looked like this. There were these trees out front, spaced evenly, that looked like this. And the woman's husband was kind of looking at her and me and my parents kind of with this weird grin on his face, kind of like, what in the world is going on? And his wife was looking at me like I had cobras growing out of my ear. I mean, her mouth was agape, literally. Her eyes were bugged out. And she looked at my parents and she goes, how the hell could he possibly know that? And my parents were all flustered and they were like, oh, well, kids in their imagination. She goes, no kids in their imagination. She goes, how the hell could he possibly know that? And my parents were just kind of at a loss for words. And she said, that's what we came over to tell you, is about the vacation that we just took. And we drove that car and we took our 2 kids with us. And the hotel we stayed at is exactly how John described it. How the hell is it possible that he can know these things? And my parents kind of looked at each other flustered and were like, go play, John. And I was like, okay, nice to meet you folks. And I went off, and that was when I discovered that I could see into people's lives. I could read their thoughts. I could read their emotions. I could tell where they'd been, what they were been doing. And then I learned that I could also predict their futures accurately and tell what was coming for them. And for those people, that was extremely frightening because they never came back to visit my parents again after that. So, but that was when I discovered at about 6 years of age that I had that gift. And so then I went about finding out everything I could about how to develop it. What do I do with it? How does it grow? How do I get more accurate?
How do you get control of it?
How do you get
that would be
control of it? Yeah,
terrible for a child to have all those images coming into his head.
Yeah, well, it's a funny thing. I guess the old black ghost coming and opening up the portals to this dimension of paranormal experiences kind of, in essence, prepared me for some of that. And then I was always just very at peace, very at ease with it. It was normal. It was natural. It was something I experienced every day to some degree or the other. And when that's the way you grow up, and the only thing you know, it's second nature. It's normal. Mm-hmm. And so as I begin to research things, I discovered a lot of unpleasantness in the religious and the spiritual realms, paranormal, psychic realms. There's a lot of phonies. There's a lot of frauds. There's a lot of duplicity. There's a lot of disingenuousness. And that's in the religious realms and the spiritual paranormal realms. And I discovered that there were people that would preach one thing and do just the opposite, or claim that they followed a set of spiritual principles and then act in such a way that it was obvious they didn't. And that took me aback. I was like, oh God, there's all these people proclaiming these things, but they're not living in adherence to those principles. And then I learned that there were a lot of things that was written in stone and followed as legitimate stuff, that it just didn't work. It wasn't practical. It didn't work. So then I began this quest to say, okay, what's real? What isn't? What works? What doesn't? And I discovered that most people were kind of hidebound by tradition, dogma, ritual. However they had grown up, whatever religious belief they had grown up with, they were pretty hidebound to that, even though they admitted it didn't work. And so my goal was always, let's find the truth. Let's go where that truth is. I don't care how many things I have to accept or discard along the way, as far as personal belief, experiences, and the other, or thoughts or teachings or whatever I've read. Either it works or it doesn't. And if it works, I'll keep it and see if I can expand upon it. If it doesn't work, let's get rid of it. And so that's been the motivating factor in my life to this day, is let's find the truth, and let's go there regardless of where it leads us. And if it's a beloved religious figure, this, that, and the other, and we can say, hey, what this person is teaching doesn't work, well, let's get rid of it. We don't have to denigrate the person. We don't have to be vile to the person or whatever, but we don't have to accept the teaching if it doesn't work. And so that's been my thing, is I may love you, but if you're saying the wrong thing, I can't hang with you. I'm not going to propagate that. I'm not going to let others be misled by that. And then, of course, there are the outright frauds and con artists and phonies that take advantage of people. Them I go after with a hatchet. Those are the people I'm going to go after and do my very, very best to expose and discredit.
It's noble work.
It is. It's. I feel like it's a calling, and I feel like it's something that I owe a great responsibility to. And one of the things, in my personal life, I'm a human being like everybody else, and I've got my flaws and problems. I've made my mistakes and goofs, and I've acted like a total idiot and everything else. But one thing I can say is that in my spiritual work and my spiritual life, I have never, ever, ever run afoul of that. I've never been disingenuous with it. I've never misled anyone, never taken advantage of anyone. I can lay my head down at night, go to sleep, and know that I've done my absolute best for my clients and for the spiritual gifts that I have. And I have a very, besides a moral and ethical compass that gives me impetus to do so, I have had so many powerful, real experiences on the physical realm with these spiritual forces that I know if I goofed up, they could tear me apart, and I don't want that. Mm-hmm. I don't fear these guys, but I have a very, very healthy respect for them due to a lot of experiences I've had. And so it's a respect issue. And it's something that I'm proud that I've always conducted my life in that way.
Now, are you talking negative spirits like demonic, or is there something else I'm missing?
No, I don't have any experiences with anything like demonic spirits. Mm-hmm. I have experiences with positive spirits that are just extremely powerful. Okay. And they will hold a very fine line as to where the accountability begins and ends if you misuse that power or mislead people or whatever. And excuse me, I have experienced the reality of that power to the degree that I know better than to cross it or to mess with it, or to think of being the mailroom flunky in Donald Trump's organization. You know better than to goof up. If you goof up, you may not work again. Okay. So it's that kind of power. It's not a malevolent power, but it's a power that you definitely have to be accountable to.
Well, what you're saying is they hold you to a high standard.
They hold you to a very high standard. And the people that cross that, I have seen some pretty bad things happen to.
Do you still see the older black spirit that
I
started
don't.
this?
I don't. It was so funny. I'll go back to how that started. Tell you the full story of that. I was about, like I said, about 5. This was before my psychic gift awakening, before I really had any significant paranormal experiences. And my parents had a nightlight on that left on down the hallway, so I could get up at night if I had to go to the bathroom or whatever. And I was laying there in bed, and just, I guess about 1 or 2 in the morning, it was pitch black. And I was absolutely, totally, completely, suddenly wide awake. No grogginess, no drowsiness. And I thought, well, did I hear a noise outside? And that's what woke me up. And I laid there and listened, didn't hear anything. Everything was still and quiet. And I thought, well, this is really, really odd. So I raised up on my elbows in bed, and I was just kind of looking around my room. And I looked out my open bedroom door down the hallway. And in the nightlights glowed, there was this elderly black gentleman peering around the corner of the door frame at me. And I screamed bloody murder because my family's white. We didn't have anyone black living with us. So my presumption as a 5-year-old is somebody's broken into the home. Mm-hmm. When I screamed, his response was to walk around the doorway into the hall, start walking toward my bedroom, eyes locked on me. And he was every bit as solid as you or I. He was not transparent, was not translucent. He was totally, completely solid. And I can tell you how he was dressed. He had on a red plaid flannel shirt. He had on khaki pants, black belt, black shoes. And I knew he was elderly because he had close cropped white hair and a white mustache.
Okay.
And solid as you or I. And as he got closer, I screamed again. I heard my parents get up and come running. And then he began to vanish. And he vanished completely. And I realized I had seen my first ghost. And I was scared to death for a while because I was like, is he going to come back? Why did he come in the first place? What did he come for? What's he going to want me to do? And I spent the next few days of my life looking over my shoulder a lot. And all of a sudden, and I couldn't have articulated it this way as a child, but all of a sudden, this knowledge, this knowing came over me. And it was like, oh, this guy came to open up the portal of these experiences I'm starting to have now. That was why he came. And I bless his heart. I appreciate it. I've thanked him a jillion times. I've never seen him again since, as far as I know. But I kind of have the feeling he might be out there on the periphery, keeping watch over me, going, "Oh, the kid done good." So, but that was how that started, and then from that grew the experience with the learning that I had the psychic gift as well that I mentioned earlier.
About 2 weeks ago, I went on an investigation. A lady thought there was demonic forces in her house. And
right.
I called my friend, Lena Townsend out of Kansas, explained to her where I was going.
Right.
She'd come back and she said, Dan, I sent my guides out there. And again, I'm not psychic. I have no clue how this all works. Right. But she said, they said, check into the home situation. There's problems there, and it's not demonic. There's nothing yet. Right. Well, I get there, do my thing. I use dowsing rods myself. Talked to a couple spirits. Her grandmother was there. A friend from school was there who had passed, but they all said nothing demonic. When I showed them the note from her, they said, yes, we just had an issue in the family, and they chatted about it with me. Is this spirit guide thing what you use? Is this something, and I'm sure everyone's a little different, but is that the kind of style you've got?
Well, and people have asked me this over the years, and I still don't have a really comprehensive, satisfactory explanation for it. I have a retinue of spirit guides, guardian angels, other types of entities, spirits, intelligences on the other side that some of them have been with me since I was a kid. They provide that information, guidance, and input. I receive things from the environment. I think I receive things from within myself. So there's a lot of ways that this information comes. I'm a portal for it, a conduit for it, a magnet for it. And I think it's both an internal and an external thing working together. And I can't describe it any better than that because I don't understand it any better than that. I wish I did. And as far as the psychic gift, when I get something for someone that I know they can take to the bank. Now, no psychic on the planet's 100% accurate. It doesn't occur. But I've been told over the years that my clients have told me that I'm 80 to 90% accurate. When I get something that I know is correct, it comes to me in the same way that, like, when we were kids, we went to school, we learned that 2 + 2 = 4. And then we learned we could take that equation anywhere in the world, and anywhere in the world, 2 + 2 = 4. Right. So it was a fact that we could rely on. And when I get something for a client that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt is an accurate prediction or an accurate insight, it comes to me into my mind in the same way as if it were a fact that I've always known, some fact that I learned a long time ago and that I've been able to prove out. And it comes to me that way, and that I'm able to give that to them that way. And that's about the best way I can describe it. I want to touch on the demon thing here for a little bit, because that's such a big thing in the spiritual paranormal realm, psychic investigation, paranormal investigation, and it shouldn't be. I'm not saying that there's not negativity out there. There's not evil out there. All you got to do, and you're a former police officer, right?
Yes.
You know there's evil in the world. I mean, we have to acknowledge that. If we extrapolate that, there has to be some negativity in the spiritual realm. But I've lived 68 years on this planet, and I've never knowingly encountered a serial killer. I've never been in a situation where I feared for my life. And I've had an awful lot of experiences, traveled a lot, met an awful lot of people. So the analogy that I'm trying to get across there is that in the spiritual realm, likewise, most of the experiences that you're going to have are going to be positive experiences, at least neutral, most of the time uplifting. I've had my life saved several times, literally, physically, by my guardian angels. The demon thing became popular. And I think it almost goes back to Flip Wilson, and you young people have to look up Flip Wilson.
But you've got to look up Flip Wilson if you don't know that comedian.
It goes back to Flip Wilson. The devil made me do it, you know. And we kind of got into that mindset as an excuse for our behavior, and then we got into that mindset for explaining away things that we didn't understand. And I think a lot of that, to assign things to demon, comes from, again, this knee-jerk response to things that we have. If you were raised staunchly in the Christian religion, the Bible's full of paranormal activity, but anything outside of that that's not sanctioned by the Bible or by your particular religion is evil, demonic, satanic, whatever.
Yes.
And so that's the knee-jerk reaction. That's the default mode that you go to if you encounter something paranormal. And then there's a lot of misinterpretation out there. I'll give you an example. When I was shooting the pilot for the History Channel, this lady said, I've got to, one of the docents that was in one of the places there we were investigating said, I've got to talk to you. This ghost tried to kill me. And I said, oh my God, no ghost tried to kill you. Yes, this ghost tried to kill me. I said, okay, when we get a break, we'll talk. So we got the break, and she said, I was standing in my kitchen, and she said, I swear to God, this is true. She said, the cupboard door opened by itself. A plate fell off the cupboard, flew across the room, landed by me, shattered into a jillion pieces as it hit the wall, landed on the floor. So the ghost tried to kill me. The ghost didn't try and kill you. I said, the ghost wasn't even trying to hurt you. I said, I can psychically tell you right now that for a long time, the other side has been trying their best to communicate with you and to get through to you, because there's things they need to tell you on an ongoing basis. They want to enhance your intuition, help you learn how to listen to this guidance and receive this guidance. They've been trying to do it for a long time, and they finally just got frustrated. And it's like, you've been ignoring us too long. Ignore this. You can't ignore this. And that's all it is. And I said, so take that. And I gave her several things to do, told her what to do, and then put her mind at ease and told her how to move forward with that. So there's a lot of misrepresentation there and misinterpretation of things that occur.
When you said that, the thing that crossed my mind is they're trying to get your attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I've done a bajillion paranormal investigations, a lot of high profile ones, with a lot of witnesses, a lot of, really charged destinations, a lot just on my own. I've never been pushed. I've never been scratched. I've never been bitten. I've never been told to get out. I've never been threatened or anything like this. The people that supposedly have these experiences, I don't know what's going on. I know that some of the things that I have, I'm not saying again, this is every case, but I'm saying that the majority of the cases I've been called in where somebody said, oh, I was scratched or threatened or bitten or pushed or whatever, and people have called me in to investigate that and see what I can make out of it. The underlying cause, the majority of the time, was again misinterpretation, mild mental illness, severe mental illness, drug use, drug abuse, alcoholism, and so on and so forth. So a lot of things that have, warped people's ability to interpret things accurately and to accurately understand what they're experiencing, what's actually going on. And again, I'm not saying it's every case, but that's been the majority of my experience in my investigations. And again, like I say, I've never been cursed by a spirit. I've done a lot of EVP work and things like that. I've never been told, get out, I hate you, or whatever. And I really despise these so-called paranormal investigators that go in and the first thing they do is start cursing, yelling, and challenging the spirits. If you were to go to Mike Tyson's house and yell at Mike Tyson, say, Mike Tyson, USOB, come out here, and bang on his door and say, I'm not going away till you come out, show yourself, demonstrate, you're going to find yourself counting some teeth on the sidewalk and picking them up and hoping the dentist can put them back in.
No doubt.
Likewise, why would you go to these places where there are significant spiritual powers and powers that may be far greater than you are, and then curse and challenge these spirits that you don't even know? What a total lack of respect. And then you see these idiots on TV, they show yourself, I'm not afraid of you, and the spirit does something, they scream like little girls and run.
I get so aggravated at that. It's
like,
I got what I wanted.
Isn't that what you're there for? You're asking it to manifest, and it does, and you scream like a little girl and run. Makes no sense.
No.
And what people have to understand, unfortunately, the majority of these shows on TV that deal with the paranormal are not giving you the truth about what it's like to interact with the paranormal realm. I've talked with the behind-the-scene producers of some of these shows. I've talked with the on-air talent of some of these shows. And they've told me that there's a lot of times that the producers will say, hey, right here, can we go back, reshoot that? Can you scream and run out of the room? Or can you work up a cry? Or can you, jerk your head around and go, what was that? What was that? And all these types of things. So a lot of this stuff is set up. A lot of it's phony. And
anyone who's been on a ghost hunt, a real hunter,
yeah,
knows this is not what you do.
That's not what you do. That's not the experience you have. That's not what occurs. And, granted, there may be spirits there. They may be very powerful. They may manifest, but you're going there saying, okay, who's here? What message do you have for me? Can you manifest? Can you show me you're here? Well, that's what they're doing, And then the other thing that I get that really aggravates me is if they have a REM pod sitting there and they go, if you're here, show yourself, set the REM pod off. And the REM pod goes off. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. It's like they're not trained bears on the other side riding a bike. These are intelligences with thought, will, volition, emotion, just like we have. And some of them may not be ghosts. They may not be human intelligences. They may be entities of some other kind that we don't even know how to define. And they may be very powerful, and they may have a real low tolerance for idiocy. So we have to take that into account when we go out and do these investigations. And one thing that I always tell people, look, it's not enough to go say, oh, I got some EVP, or I've something activated the REM pod, or the EMF meter went off. Okay, fine. But who set it off? What was their name? Why are they there? Why did they set it off? What message are they trying to impart? Do they have something they can tell you that'll help you? Do they need something from you that'll help them? And so that should be the purpose of a paranormal investigation, is not just to get, the REM pod went off once. Oh boy, let's go to McDonald's and talk about that now. It's like, why did it go off? Who set it off? What can we learn from that? What message is there? Because if we take the time and we're open and receptive enough to interact with these spirits, with these entities, they will bring messages to us that are helpful to us and give us further insights into the paranormal realm.
I'm going to have to dig into this more. I would like to do what you're saying, get that kind of information.
Yeah, that's the objective, and there are, again, that even as a psychic, that takes getting quiet, listening, letting that entity speak, that spirit, that person speak, letting them give you that message. And for me, I always tell people, only slightly tongue in cheek, that when I go out to do an investigation of any kind, I take the most advanced, the most sophisticated, the most sensitive and technologically advanced instrument that there is, and that's me.
Yes.
So, don't have an over reliance on technology. You need to learn to develop that gift to where you can get the voice of spirits, and the voice of spirit can talk to you. And the other side of it too is when we were shooting the pilot, when I met my producer and we became friends, we continued to work together and still do. And I would give him these two-way conversations I was having with spirits at the sites that we were at. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these things, it wasn't just stuff I was making up in my head. We could get names that we validated. We got events and circumstances we validated, and so on and so forth. But one day he told me, he says, John, get some EVP or something like that we can maybe in future shows, if we get another project going, that we could use so people can hear that. And I says, well, EVP for me is a regression, because I have two-way conversations in real time in my head with these spirits. And if I get an EVP, it's maybe 2 or 3 words. And he says, yeah, but the person watching you isn't privy to that two-way conversation in your head, but they can hear those 3 words that the spirit spoke. And I said, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. So you kind of have to combine both of it, and to give a complete picture to somebody that's really searching and really seeking or really wants to find out what's going on and a better way to communicate.
Yeah, I use dowsing rods, but I like having my K2 meter because flashing lights gets attention.
It gets attention, absolutely.
Yeah, much more so.
And when it goes off, you can say, okay, there's definitely something there. There's definitely something happening there. Likewise, ghost photographs, EVP, dowsing rods are excellent. I use dowsing rods. I use pendulums. Not so much in paranormal investigations. Like I say, when I go out, I rely on my psychic gifts and abilities, and that's basically really all I need. But those are useful implementations, and they're especially useful if it seems like there's some spirits that maybe, like certain nature spirits and things, that may have a difficult time communicating in a way that we can receive, but they can come through a pendulum or dowsing rods or something like that, where we can get that communication, we can get that information. And maybe sometimes the spirits too highly advanced to communicate with us, having a difficult time getting through, they can use a lower level thing like that. That to them is a lower level item to, yes or no or whatever. So good. They're all good tools and techniques. Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit more about your Lincoln Assassination pilot. That's really intriguing.
That was astonishing. I had, and if we have a little time here, I'll lead up to it by the circumstance that brought me there. I had been, and that's a funny story. I had, and this is where the other side sees a lot further down the road than we do. I had been for a long time watching these shows and telling my guys on the other side, I said, guys, look, you need to get somebody out there that's doing this honestly and presenting this honestly. And I need a TV show. I need to get out there and be able to present this. So I had been praying for that, asking for that, and working for that. So my wife and I had gone on a cruise. We came back from this cruise, and I got this email, and I can't remember the guy's name. The last name was Hockenberry. You may know who I'm talking about. It was David Hockenberry, John Hockenberry. He worked for like 48 Hours Prime Time, one of the news shows. He was the reporter in the wheelchair. And I remember his last name was Hockenberry. You can Google and find out. So anyways, I had an email from this guy, and he was wanting to interview me for prime time, 48 hours, whatever it was. And I called my wife, and I was like, holy cow, look at this. Here it is. Here it is. Look at this. Well, we were all excited, jumping around. We got down to the end of the email, and we had gotten back from the cruise 3 days too late to meet the deadline to be interviewed. And I was like, guys, I'm just going off, And I'm like, here it is. This is what I've been asking for and what I've been praying for. What's the deal? You could have set this up differently, done a different time frame, whatever. And the only thing they would say to me in regard to that was, just wait. You're going to be so glad you missed this. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense at all. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. So I groused and groused for a couple of weeks. And every time that I brought it up to the other side. They were like, just wait, you're going to be so glad you missed this. That doesn't make any sense. So several weeks later, I was laying there one Saturday afternoon in bed, flipping through the channels, watching TV. And here's Hockenberry interviewing who else? John Edward. And I go off on the guys. I'm like, guys, Edward doesn't need this. He's got New York Times best-selling books. He's had a TV show. I need this. So I start watching, and Hockenberry's doing everything in his power to make John Edward look like the biggest fraud, con artist, phony, and fool on the planet. And I thought, oh my God, that would have been my introduction to everybody that watches these types of shows. And the other side said, told you was going to be glad you missed this. And then shortly after that, out of the blue, I got this email from a producer that worked for Atlas Media Corporation in New York. And they were wanting to go to series for the History Channel on this series with a working title of Psychic History. And my job as a psychic would be to go to all these historical places and see what I picked up. So he asked me to do a audition tape. So my wife and I got together and tried to put together this audition tape. And so every time I would start and say, I'm psychic John Russell, and she would crack up and I would crack up. It took us about 10 or 15 takes to get through the audition tape. So did that, sent it in. They liked what they saw, and they scheduled a screen test. And so we did the screen test, which was filming a paranormal investigation that we went out to. And they liked the screen test, so they agreed to go to pilot. And the pilot episode was the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And the thing that made me the absolute best choice as a psychic for this thing was that I am the poorest student of history on the planet. I hate history. I don't like history. I don't study history. I was the guy in school that quite literally, shame to admit, wrote the answers in pen on his hand so I could cheat on the history test and try and pass it. Just so they knew if I got anything, it had to be coming from somewhere, out there, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So we packed up and went to, DC and all these places. And the most dramatic thing was to get to go to Ford's Theater. And we had the carte blanche of being with Atlas Media and being with the History Channel. And that opened doors that nothing else would open. And we found out along the way that there were previous paranormal investigators or psychics that had been there and had pulled such goofy stunts that most of these places said, no, never again, don't even ask. So we were so honored to be able to get in there and to go to these places. And imagine going in Ford's Theater with a camera crew. The docents are there. They go about their business, keep out of sight, and there's no other employees there, and there's no other people there. I had the place to myself. I had Ford's Theater to myself. Imagine that. And the paranormal, experiences that we had, the visions that I saw, the things I received were just phenomenal. Were just fantastic. We were able to validate a lot of the names that I got, a lot of the things that I saw. Underneath Ford's Theater, there's a little museum down there with the door where Lincoln's, the presidential box was, going into the presidential box, his overcoat, things like that. Some of the things were replicas, some of the things were real items. And so just getting to be in that environment was incredible. And I looked at the door going into the presidential box, and it said that Booth had drilled a hole. They have a placard there explaining all the items, and it said Booth had drilled a hole in that door so he could look in and see where the president was and see when to burst in and shoot him. And I said, no, that's not right. I said, Booth did not drill that hole. I said, Booth had that hole drilled by someone that worked in the theater, like a carpenter or someone like that, that worked in the theater, that wouldn't arouse suspicion by being there and doing something. And sure enough, after we finished the pilot, we had Lincoln experts and the Atlas and everybody did extensive research afterwards. And sure enough, we found out that the hole was drilled by a workman in the theater, not by Booth. So they were astonished that I was able to pick these things up psychically and to disprove some things that were commonly accepted as fact in history, when indeed it wasn't. So,
I'm not, dissing your abilities. I believe everything you're saying. It's just, who would believe on the eve of a assassination, he would stand there with a drill and drill a hole in it with a army guards?
Well, no, it wasn't on the eve. They had done it. They had commissioned it several days before Lincoln was to be there. And so that's what I perceived, was that Booth didn't. Yeah, but you're exactly right. Why would Booth stand there and do it? So that was what I had perceived, was that, Booth didn't do it, and that it was done beforehand, and then that was validated. And what amazed me was, where was the bodyguard? Supposedly, ostensibly, the hole was drilled so that the Secret Service could look through and keep an eye on Lincoln. Where was Lincoln's bodyguard that allowed Booth to burst through? So he may have been part of the assassination plot, because I perceived that the assassination plot went very, very, very deep, that there were very many people involved behind the scenes. And a lot of, if you study history, then subsequent looking deep into that, it bears it out. Like one of our Lincoln experts said, it may have been Booth's finger on the trigger, but a lot of hands held the gun. So, excuse me, we got to go across the street after that to the, I should have had this, the house across the street where Lincoln was taken after he was shot and where he died the next morning. We got to go in there and investigate there. And one of the things that stuck out to me there was, I said, I'm picking up Mrs. Lincoln. I said, anybody would be distraught with her husband shot, and anybody would be crying or weeping. But I said, what I pick up was Ms. Lincoln was like screeching like a banshee for most of the night, like just wailing and screeching unconsolably, and not just, once and then quit and okay, I'm over it, and then maybe hours again, maybe just almost the entire night, just this. And they said that that's indeed what happened, that she was that inconsolable, was just crying out constantly like that.
I had never heard that before. That's wild.
And the focus of the entire thing, the episode was titled On the Trail of an Assassin, which of course we were tracking down Booth. And so they were taking me to all the places, unbeknownst to me, that Booth had gone after the assassination. And the focus of one of the things they wanted me to focus on was Booth ever repentant? Was he sorry for what he did? And I picked up until the very end when he was killed that no, he wasn't sorry. He wasn't repentant. He thought he did a great thing. He thought he did a service and something to be proud of. And he was not in the least bit repentant till the end. And so we went on the trail of the assassin. We went to the Mudd house, Dr. Samuel Mudd, and I picked up a lot of things there that were very interesting. I said, Booth was here for a while after he was treated, and I could tell them the bedroom that he was in. I said the bed's in a different orientation now than it was then, because then it was up against this wall and Booth laid here. And I said he was scribbling or writing in a journal or a diary or something. And they said that, yes, when they would come into the room, he'd be writing in this journal or writing in this diary. And they confirmed that the bed was in a different place than it was now. And I think I even picked up that the door had been relocated or something, moved to a different location or something. So they confirmed all of that, validated all of that. And some really, really neat things happened there. I think we were the first to use a FLIR camera, forward-looking infrared radiation. Everybody uses them since, but I think we may have been the very, very first to do that. And we had regular cameras, and we also filmed with the FLIR camera simultaneously. And forward-looking infrared radiation picks up heat as white, and then it picks up cold as black. So we were upstairs, and I was picking up things, and they were validating things and listening to what I was saying. And we heard this loud crack, like a branch or a big, like a 2x2 snapping, something like that. And I said, there's our ghost downstairs. Everybody heard it. And I said, there's our ghost. So we went downstairs, and I walked over there, and they wanted to know if I could see who it was. And I said, I think it may be Mrs. Mudd. I think it may be her ghost coming back here. And so I was standing there in an area of the house, and they were filming me on both film and the FLIR. And I said, Mrs. Mudd, is that you? And I said, she says it's yes. I said, she's appeared over here. She's walking toward me. And I said, right now she's walking through me. I can feel her energy. She's literally walking through me and walking out the other side. And as I said that, the FLIR camera picked up on the floor these black footprints indicating cold, walking across toward me, and they were in the shape of period era shoes that women of that era would have worn. And we actually picked that up. And then one of the other neat things that one of the docents there experienced, one of the Mud descendants, he had gone outside. The police patrol the property at night, and the sheriff's department. And he had gone out and said, called the guy and said, listen, we've got a film crew here from the History Channel. We're going to be filming. So if you see all these cars here past hours and you see lights coming on and off and all this, you know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he went outside, told the sheriff that, locked everything up outside. And he came back in on one of our filming breaks. One of our breaks, he came back in and he was white and he was trembling. And we were like, what's the matter? He said, I went outside just now to check on everything. And he said, everything that I had locked up in this one particular building, he said, it was unlocked. The door was open. The lights were on and water was running in the sink. And he was absolutely just,
uh-huh.
So all of these places that I went, not only did I, stir up the energies, the spirits that were there, so that for weeks afterward, because after they did my part, then the reenactors had to go back in. They had to shoot the reenactment crew. And they said when they went to these places, things would move on their own while they were filming. People would see things move on their own wherever I had been and investigated. So it was one of the most amazing, one of the most fantastic experiences I ever had. It was just mind-blowing. I write about that in the second book, A Knock in the Attic. I write about that in there as well. And it was just incredible, just mind-blowing.
John, I wish we could talk more because that story is incredible all by itself. Yeah. If I'd have known that, we'd have spent the whole hour just on Lincoln.
I can come back. We can do it again.
Well, if you don't mind, we'll do it. Maybe on Lincoln's birthday or something. We'll get you back here and talk more about this, or the anniversary of his death, something.
Yeah.
But how do people find you, and how do they contact you?
They can go to johnrussell.net. And that's for my readings. Full information there is if you want to schedule a reading. Right now, just so people know, I'm booking into November of this year. So that'll give you an idea of the time frame. And if you want to read about the stories I've written about my books that are out, they're available anywhere at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, anywhere online. The title of my first book is Riding with Ghosts, Angels, and the Spirits of the Dead. And the second book's A Knock in the Attic. And again, those are available at all major booksellers. And if you go to my website, johnrussell.net, when the page loads on either side of my picture there, my photograph of myself, there's a picture of each book cover. You can click on that. It'll take you right to Amazon where you can buy it.
And I've been on that page. And guys, you got to check out just the things he's done. The three I named off with Coast to Coast and all that is just the beginning of what John's done, where he's been.
It's been a full life and an interesting life, and all of the interviews. I've been on Coast to Coast 6 times now. I've been in the past year and a half, I've been interviewed over 100 times. So that's been pretty full. That's been a lot of excitement, a lot of fun, and a chance to reach out to a lot of people, talk about a lot of things. We didn't even get to UFOs. Jeez.
No. John, usually when I do this, well, not usually, but sometimes it seems like I've got to drag questions and answers out of people. You have been an outstanding guest. I could just sit back and listen to your stories all day.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. We'll definitely do it again whenever you want to.
All right. John Russell, thank you very much. johnrussell.net. That's 2 S's and 2 L's, right?
Right.
RUSSELL. johnrussell.net.
Correct.
Guys, you need to check it out. It's been awesome. John, thanks again. And
thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. I've had a blast. We'll do it again.
Your stories are awesome, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, my friends, we're just about out of time, but I just didn't want to stop because, wow, those stories were incredible. So anyway, first off, all of you guys, ghost people, wannabes, people who want to see some of this stuff, if you'll get on my Facebook page, it's Spook Stalker on Facebook. Check that out, because anybody that I know of, anyone that I believe is a legitimate ghost hunting thing, be it tours, haunted hotels, conferences, I will share where they're at and what's going on. For instance, I might share with the McIntyre Villa in Kansas, or the Hotel Josephine in Holton, Kansas, St. Louis Ghost Tours, wherever. I'll share it there, and you get plenty of opportunities. There's a lot going on in West Virginia. There's a lot going on in Virginia, in North Carolina. So keep close. I will start sharing those more and more as we get closer. And if you have not become an UNX subscriber yet, why? Guys, it's free. All you got to do is type some information in. I guarantee you nobody from this network is going to call and tell you your car warranty is about to expire. This is not what we're doing. This is strictly to get you as a subscriber. It's free. You get the monthly UNX newsletter. You get access to the blogs, the X blog, and a free copy of the magazines. And you can see in there, free digital copy comes to you every 4 months. No, every 3 months. Every 3 months. And it's got some stories and writing from some of the top people in the paranormal world. So what are you waiting for? Get on there and subscribe. It's awesome. And as far as I'm concerned, my night's over. I am kind of wore out from those stories. John Russell is an incredible storyteller, as you noticed. So from me and from all the folks here at the UNX Network, good night. Be